I'm Allison Corrine, and I'm going to show you how I edited this photo. So this is obviously the final result. I'm going to start from the beginning. I've already done, this is back in Photoshop, so I've already done all of my Lightroom edits. I cleaned up the background a little bit in Photoshop. I just removed a couple distracting objects, and we're ready to start creating what I'm calling kind of a sparkle and blur effect. Before I start the actual edit, a couple people had asked me about the lighting setup for this image, and this is actually natural light. They were placed at the start of a little trail that runs back in here, and the trail was a little bit darker because there's obviously some foliage and some trees. And this was early morning, the sunlight was still pretty low, and then they had open sky in front of them. So that's why we have this beautiful light. It's from the open sky. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer. I'm then going to create my blur effect. So I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, and I'm going to use Motion Blur. You could play around with different blur types, but for this specific image, I used Motion. And then you can play around with what angle you want. I wanted to kind of mimic some of the movement in the trees back here, so I chose a completely vertical movement, which is 90 degrees. And then you can play around with like how much you want the blur to reach. And I kind of liked it. I mean, 1,000 is really nice too, but I kind of liked it a little bit less. So we're gonna go back in here. And then we're gonna click OK. And so now you have this blur layer, and you're gonna reduce the opacity on it. And at this point, you're not gonna worry about how much of your subject is showing, because we're gonna bring your subject back in later. This is purely how you want the background to look. And for me, I wanted this like foliage in here, and in here, I wanted that detail. So I brought it down to about 80 so that you can still see the foliage detail. The next layer you want to add is your sparkle layer. These are really easy to create yourself at home. You just need like a little light source. You can use sparklers or a fiber optic wand. I just purchased this on Etsy because it was a lot quicker, and it came in a pack of like, I don't know, 20 files or something. So there were a lot of options, and I really liked this one the best for this image. That said, I'm not crazy about the color for this image, so I'm gonna apply a hue saturation adjustment layer, which under your adjustments, it's hue saturation, which is this little box right here. And then because I want it to only apply to this layer, I'm gonna select this little drill down option, which is the square with like an arrow pointing down. And you can see now up here, this little arrow shows me that this adjustment is only being applied to this layer. So once I've done that, I'm gonna go to the actual adjustment, and I'm gonna start making my adjustments. Since there's only one color in this layer, I don't need to select which color I'm manipulating. I can just use master and adjust the whole thing. And for this, I wanted it to kind of mimic some of this copper kind of color that's in the trees. So I chose this color. You could also mess around with your saturation a little bit, which I'm gonna increase a little bit there. So now that we've done that, the last step is to bring back the couple. So I'm going to duplicate my background layer again, and I'm gonna bring it all the way to the top. And then I'm gonna select my couple or my subject, and I'm gonna do that by clicking the object selection tool. There's a couple different ways to do this, as with almost everything in Photoshop. You could also select the magic wand tool or the quick selection tool. Both of those have an option to select your subject. I found that the one that works best is actually object selection tool, and then select subject. And you'll see it takes a minute, but once it comes up, it's a pretty clean selection. There's a little bit right here that's missed, but it's so close. I'm then gonna create a layer mask, and I'm gonna choose reveal selection. So basically it's gonna hide everything that's not selected. And you can see we're starting to get close to where our final product is. Now, what I could do is I could come in here and I can clean up this mask a little bit. So if you remember, black hides. I'm gonna make this brush a little bit harder. And I'm just gonna do a really quick cleanup for this for the purpose of this video, so you're not sitting here watching me spend hours cleaning this up. But obviously, if I was, doing this for real, I would want to go in and do this very carefully and do a really nice cleanup. So you get the idea. And then I wanna kind of blur them out at the bottom here. So I'm gonna go back to really soft brush, really large brush. And I'm just gonna brush this on so that they're a little bit blurred out, and see, we'll bring back some of that sparkle as well too. And there you have it, we're all done.